Hi, I'm Nick Haig, and welcome to the B2B Insights podcast. B2B marketing is undergoing a fundamental transformation. Today's business buyers and influencers expect a consumer-like experience. They want it to be personal, relevant, convenient, and more valuable than ever before, all delivered at the right time and on the platform and channel of their choice. Their expectations are non-negotiable, and for most businesses, this is impossible to meet until now. On September the 1st, 2020, a new company was born, Merkle B2B. Merkle B2B is uniquely positioned to help marketeers to not only survive, but also to win, with 1,000 plus B2B experts across the world and one mission, to be the indispensable growth partner for our clients. Heading up Merkle B2B as global CEO is Michael McLaren. Michael's a successful, proven and dynamic business leader who has held a variety of global executive roles in the US, Australia, Singapore and Japan. His extensive experience managing integrated brand communications and over the years has worked with key global clients including IBM, Microsoft, Intel and Cisco. A globetrotting Australian who is now based in New York. I can't wait to get into this conversation. Such an exciting time for the B2B industry. So welcome, Michael, to the B2B Insights podcast.
Thanks, Nick. It's great to be here. I'm humbled by that introduction, so thank you for that.
Well, lots to cover, and I think We've been working alongside each other for the launch of Merkle B2B for the last year at least. So it's really exciting times to be able to bring this to the world, and I think there's lots of different areas I'd like to dive into and discuss with you today.
Well, I'm looking forward to the conversation. So thank you for the invitation.
No, not at all. Before I get into my question set, I think it should only be right that we start out by giving our listeners just some background to who you are and this journey that you've been on to become global CEO of Merkle B2B.
Well, thanks, Nick. So nice to be here. Michael McLaren, Australian native, a proud Australian. I first came to New York when I was 25 years old, kind of drawn by the bright lights and the global nature of the marketplace. And I've just been lucky enough to travel around the world, but always seem to have come back to New York, now 5 times.
Right.
I started in advertising, which was, a great grounding for me. I started working on Unilever, so packaged goods. And when I first graduated from university, I actually went to Unilever as an assistant brand manager. So I learned a lot about the basics of marketing from Unilever, great training ground. When I moved into the advertising realm, I started on Unilever. So we, really learned the basics of, how do you understand consumers? How do you drive, messaging? How do you build value propositions and, unique selling propositions into your communications? As advertising evolved, I got engaged in the high tech industry because high tech for a while there was the biggest advertising spender. I'm dating myself a little bit, but late 90s, early 2000s. And I was lucky enough to start working on Microsoft and, at McCann, and went through that explosive growth and globalization period with Microsoft. And we moved beyond advertising and started doing integrated marketing communications. So we started running the CRM, we started helping them with their, mid-market sales enablement, events. So we started expanding our engagement with Microsoft, and it really opened my eyes to, integrated marketing communications and the power of what we can do when we put great people and big ideas across this broad realm. And so I sort of just kept expanding that horizon as I moved into various roles and started understanding how technology and data really starting to become fundamental substrates to effective marketing communications. So, that led me to Merkle. I joined Merkle 4 years ago, and it's just been a fantastic journey. Merkle has been an extraordinary growth story. They've had a compound 20% growth for 15 years. There's not many companies in any industry that can claim that. And, they've always had this, fundamental belief in the power of data, the power of technology, and the importance of people-based approaches. And I think as we've continued to grow, that thinking is sort of core to everything that we do. So as we now move into the next realm of customer experiences and really, threading together connected customer experiences in an omni-channel world, I think it's the next evolution of our industry, and I'm super excited to, be bringing that to the table with Merkle B2B.
Yeah. You might have answered my my first question in short there, because I was going to say, why now? Why now for Merkle B2B? And I suppose the digital age, the data, the integration. But is there a? It seems like perfect timing in terms of the fact of the way that the world is at the moment and this growing industry of the B2B industry. But
well, B2B, it is really interesting, Nick. It's an industry that, first of all, it's massive. We think the B2B business is about $120 billion, and that's just marketing services. And that's based on triangulating a number of different data sources. But, it's been using a lot of the same marketing playbook for some time. Reliant in many industries on physical events, big sales events, small sales events, regional sales events, and also, a high touch component as you move from, transaction to, sort of repurchase. So the sales engagement in a physical sense. And one of the interesting things that has happened, and there's a lot of bad things that have happened with COVID-19, but one of the interesting things has been, as those channels have been sort of shut down for the foreseeable future, companies have really had to rethink, how are they building digital ecosystems. So, the entire environment, the social environment, the .com, the media environment, to allow prospective buyers, to get the information they need, to do the evaluation they need in a digital environment as opposed to a digital physical environment. And I think it's really accelerated trends that were in play anyway. So we've seen this industry start to transform, but there's been almost like an accelerator put on the whole digital marketing, transformation area. And we believe that it's going to lead to a profound shift that is going to be a permanent difference. There's going to be, I'm not suggesting that events aren't going to be important in the future, but there's going to be a hybrid world where we're going to move seamlessly between physical and digital, and the winning brands are going to be able to sustain that customer experience as the customer chooses to engage with that brand, where and how and when they choose. So, it's actually, I think it's going to lead to some real changes in the market environment, and it's going to require the type of skill sets that a group like Merkle B2B can bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, the world events and COVID, these challenges that have been brought to clients, as you say, it's that what used to be a very, well, and this, the personal side of business, that relationship building is still very important, but it's that balancing of the human to human, plus then this digital way that we do business in a socially distanced world, us having this conversation now. But I suppose tied in with that, the challenges is, customer experience you mentioned, and being customer centric. But I think the biggest problem that clients may be facing is, doing more with less because budgets are so tight. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And I think that, one of the things that we need to do is to, really start taking advantage of some of the technologies that are out there. One of the things we often counsel clients is, let's listen to the data signals that the customer or the prospect is emitting as they're navigating their way through the digital environment. And let's try to target messaging to those prospects who are most likely to be actively evaluating. So let's apply some of the new data sources like intent data to track industries that are currently in a purchase mode, and target our messaging around them. So in the spirit of doing more with less, let's not waste resources messaging to audiences that are not in the evaluation phase, and try to target our resources against those that are. And then let's build an always on platform that sits underneath our sort of programs that allows prospects to come in and start the journey and get the information they want, and then us quickly then transforming them into an active marketing program. So, great account-based marketing work can be one of the tools that B2B companies can use to do more with less.
Yeah, yeah. You talked about targeting there, and I suppose that's the essence of marketing, isn't it? In being able to tap in and resonate a message or a particular proposition with different customers out there. But it can't be this one size fits all. It's got to be tailored, and where segmentation and personas, real hot topic at the moment. But I think what we've definitely seen, and from some recent research, is that this B2B landscape is changing more than ever, especially because of the driving dynamics that are within the decision-making unit, and the fact that the age of the workforce is getting younger, of course. Do you think that's a big part of why this landscape's changing, why we're going to more digital first, in the fact that millennials are more and more becoming these driving influencers?
I definitely think it's a factor. I think it's one of several factors. So, but yeah, I mean, I think when you look at millennials and you look at Gen Z, you've got a audience that is digital natives. They truly understand the digital world. They were born in it. They're very familiar with devices that they help them be more mobile. They are looking to engage with companies in the channels of their choosing. They're very adroit at blocking marketing that they think is irrelevant or annoying to them. So it puts a high stake on, how are we going to be marketing to these audiences? Marketing becomes a value exchange as opposed to a persuasive piece of communication. Millennials and Gen Zs understand the value of their data, and they expect something in return. They're often willing to volunteer their data, but in general, they're expecting a value exchange in return. So marketing, we believe, is got to pivot to a value exchange. And also, we need to understand that the customer is in control of the brand engagement. They can choose to engage or not. They can choose, and we do know from research that millennials are a pretty tough crowd. They score lower on NPS in general.
Yeah.
And they're twice as likely to move to a competitive company following a bad experience than a baby boomer. I mean, that data is out there. So, it's important. It's critical that B2B brands understand the change in this dynamic. But I think there's also a couple of other dynamics. So beyond just being millennial and Gen Z, there's also just a growing familiarity amongst all people based on their experiences as consumers of how things can become more convenient, more relevant, more personal. And I think some of the great consumer brands, and I'll put, Netflix up there, or I'll put, Uber, in terms of how it completely transformed the transportation kind of experience. But those brands have created a sort of an understanding of the quality of highly personalized, individualized solutions. And some of those expectations are coming over into the B2B space. So as customers expect more, it's incumbent on B2B brands to sort of pivot and start delivering more.
For sure. And we see it a lot in, for example, our customer experience research, where for years now, probably 5 years, since the course of time, the number one, often doesn't matter which sector you're in, which company you are, the biggest driver of loyalty is often this ease of doing business. Mm-hmm. And B2B companies have often failed at being able to take that on. Okay, they've got these good relationships with the sales team or the account managers, but too often they're set up in silos. And I think that's where there's this missing, they've missed a trick, most B2B companies, and they're starting to, in this current environment, starting to come around to that way of thinking, that this omni-channel experience, being able to mirror the two of the human to human and the digital, as we've already talked about, is really key on that. And I think, this it's where investment needs to take place to deliver against that.
Yeah, I mean, if you just sort of put yourself in the shoes of the prospective customer for a second, I mean, there's some things about B2B purchases that are really important to remember. First of all, they're typically longer time frame, so they happen over a period of time. There's more stakeholders involved, and you have to build consensus amongst a group of stakeholders. There is a lot at stake because sometimes these are big ticket items and there's careers on the line. So there's a strong emotional component. And now I'm asking a buyer to try to put together a clear evaluation and recommendation and price comparison. And they're having to do all that work in an increasingly digital environment. So, there's a lot at stake and there's a lot of work required. So we have to make it as easy as possible for them to get access to the information they need, to be able to actively price compare, to be able to look at third-party reviews and get access to peer and industry evaluations. So, it almost is incumbent on us really, really sitting there thinking about what is the day in the life of that customer like, and how can we make it easier for them? How can we help them navigate the various steps that they have to go through in order to make a intelligent and defensible recommendation to their organization? Because you have to believe, when you've got a multi-million-dollar ticket item, which in many cases big B2B purchases tend to be, they're putting their entire reputation on the line in there, and there's a lot at stake. So we have to empower them with everything we can to make it as easy, to make it as convenient, to make it as readily available as we can.
Yeah. You talked about emotions there as well, and of course, we've got to do the basics. We've got to, we've got to have the right product or service offering. It's got to be at a competitive price. It's got to be available in whatever format they want. But the brand, especially what we've seen, and from some recent sentiment research we've done, we've seen that decision makers, and maybe this is a generational thing or not, I'm not sure, but we've seen that business decision makers are placing more importance on wanting to do business with brands, with companies that are socially responsible. So there's this other value add that they're looking for in the decisions, whether it's on a local level or a global level, and it could be from an environmental standpoint, or it could be from a social impact. Are you seeing that as well out there?
Yeah, I think this is going to be an increasingly important component in a evaluation process. So, one of the things we know about millennials and about Gen Zs is that they are looking to engage with brands that align with their values. And this is true in the consumer space and true in the B2B space.
Yeah.
And their values could be, obviously every individual's different, but are we doing the right thing for the environment? Are we doing the right thing for our society? Are we taking the necessary steps to build a more diverse and inclusive culture? These are important. These are important to these particular generations, and there'll be an increasingly important criteria in the decision-making process. So let's just say that you tick the box on all of the rational criteria. Are you the fair price? Are you a high quality? Do you deliver against all of my specifications? But then there's also going to be an increasingly important emotional component. Are you a brand I can trust? Are you a brand that aligns with my view of the world, my values? And I think that kind of share of heart component is going to be an increasingly important component. I think brands have to work hard at being genuine, at being transparent, at declaring what they stand for, and then not just talking the talk but walking the walk. And I think that the ones that do obviously table stakes is deliver the basics. So, and when I say basics, I'm not trying to make it sound like it's not important, but they've got to deliver great product or great service. But at the same time, they've got to stand for things that align with the values of their audiences. And I do think that share of heart is going to be an increasingly influential component in decision-making processes.
Yeah. I'm not going to go into this in detail now, and I know I've shared with you some research, but that we've yet to launch in the coming months or so. But I think it's very fitting to that. Like you say, we've been having a look at lots of big data sets to understand why brands are chosen, how decisions are made by people looking to do business with a particular company, and there's these four key elements. On the one hand, they're looking for business value add, like you say, never being sacked for specifying IBM, that there's big ticket items at stake. So it needs to be reliable. But in the end, most companies are good at delivering against that. Otherwise, they'd be going out of business. But still within that business value add, there's this understanding where, there needs to be this variety or tailored. It can't be too complicated. I suppose back to this ease of doing business and having this level of transparency.
Mm-hmm.
But I think what's really interesting, and again, it's all fits into the same conversation, is that when people make decisions to do business with other brands, they also look at it from a personal perspective. What's in it for me from a personal value add? And there's two key elements from an enrichment point of view. So, what's going to add to me in terms of making my work life more enjoyable? Maybe innovation in terms of helping me understand what they can do more to feeling safe, to contracting with them on a personal level. But a lot of this preeminence, and we've talked about it, socially responsible, adding more value, playing an active role outside of the wider obligations of doing business with a brand in a particular category. Companies don't do well at that, and I think this is the real opportunity, and it comes back really to the mission of Merkle B2B, to create experiences that matter for the people that matter most, and it's down to a business value add, but companies need to understand it's around that personal line of things and the emotive side of business.
I think you're absolutely right, Nick. And, we're going to talk more about that research in the months ahead, obviously. But I think that there's, it's not uncommon to see a kind of a pendulum swing back and forth between brand and demand, right? And there's, we often involved in conversations with clients about, what's the right balance? Should I be 30% brand and 70% demand, or 50-50? And obviously it varies depending on the situation and the category and the brand. But what I do think in general is that the pendulum over the last 5 years has swung too far towards demand gen and kind of optimization in what we used to call the lower funnel, and it's been very offer centric, very kind of rational, focused messaging and marketing. And what I think is the pendulum does need to find a way back to finding the right balance between the brand elements, like, is this a brand that I trust? Is this a brand that has momentum? Is this a brand that that aligns with my values? I think that this is going to be a more important component. And obviously, as I say, the allocation of investment will vary depending on the category and the brand itself. But I think that we've spent a lot of time rationally optimizing, and we've got to spend a little bit of time really thinking about the power of emotionally connecting with our customers at the brand level.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I keep falling back on other research we've done, but there's real evidence in the marketplace, especially over these last 6 months where we've been doing this track, that, like you say, people have been focusing on that bottom of the funnel activity because I suppose they're looking to survive, so they're looking to turn every opportunity into a sell. But it's short-sightedness, as we all know, and we are coming out of this pandemic, even though we're still in the midst of it, and we will all survive. And what does not only 2021 but 22, 23, what does the company look like then? We need to invest for the future and think more around the brand and that top of the funnel piece to differentiate, for sure. And we talked a lot about challenges and trends, and obviously the tech piece is a big part of that. This data to digital to integrated connections. Is it any more trends that you're seeing out there in the marketplace that you think's worthwhile talking about, Michael?
I mean, the trend, if you like, is towards more integration in an omni-channel world. So we're moving from having these campaigns running in siloed marketing communications channels. So, your social program, your .com, your email, your CRM systems, your media programs, and, where most clients are connecting and interconnecting those so that we're creating more, multi-channel experiences. The trend as you move forward is going to be towards more personalized experiences that are at the sort of in any channel of the customer's choosing. So there'll be a connection as they move from, the mobile platform to the .com, to the call center, to the sales engagement, and that customer information and that customer perspective will be brought in a seamless fashion as they move across these channels of engagement. And then at the same time, you're going to start seeing more technology being applied to be able to dynamically create those experiences based on the kind of data exhaust of that customer as they've moved through our ecosystem. So we can conform magically in real time the right message and the right content and the right offer based on our understanding of the needs of the customer, and that's going to happen across an omni-channel world. So it's going to require the tight integration of data, technology, creativity, and content. But we really are starting to move to that kind of utopian state, if you like, of, wow, I really wish I could get exactly the right message to exactly the right person at exactly the right time in exactly the right place. And we're now able, through the power of data, technology, and brand content and creativity, to be able to bring that dream to reality. And then the future state is going to be pretty interesting as well, because you can see some of it when you really look at how the Amazons of the world are going about their marketing, where they're running algorithms across massive data sets, looking at lookalike profiles, looking at customer records and anonymized customer records, I hope. And they're starting to do referrals and suggestions based on those histories. Netflix is the same. So, now you're starting to get into trying to anticipate the customer's needs and delight the customer by giving them something that they weren't expecting. And it comes in all different forms. I think the Netflix suggested other customers found this interesting. That's a good example of what I'm talking about. But in a B2B world, there could be so many more things. It could be upsell, cross-sell, warranties, service packages. It could be all sorts of things that you can start to build around that customer engagement based on the tight analysis and the intelligent analysis of other customers that look like them, and also based on their history of doing business with the customer. I will say this, that the days of being able to get away with treating a customer like an anonymous, unknown individual who's hitting your website for the first time are kind of gone. If we do that, we risk losing that customer. And I think that we still have these silos in these systems where the .com is not connected to the CRM, is not connected to the commerce platform. So there's no common red thread that's running through those experiences, and oftentimes when the customer hits one of those environments, they're almost treated like an unknown person, and that's going to be really dangerous. So it's one of the reasons why we're seeing the level of investment. Have a look at the share price of Adobe and Salesforce in the last 6 months. Like there's a reason that the threading together of these digital ecosystems is happening. Partly it's to empower a richer digital ecosystem so that we can help people manage in a touchless environment. But secondly, it's because we've got to put these pieces together, because we won't get away with disconnected, dead-end experiences. We just won't.
Yeah. I think that's been the problem in too many B2B markets, whether it's lethargy or, whether it's the fact that they're ignoring the fact that this was coming down the line. But I think that's the real opportunity and the excitement that we see around Merkle B2B, being the architects of the ultimate B2B customer experience, being able to piece and sew these bits of these technological bits together to create too often left in silos. I think around Merkle B2B, just for our listeners, it's the coming together of 5 different brands. So Merkle being the prominent one there, data and tech integration, analytics. There's DWA, who specialise in media, Gyro on creative, Digital Pie on marketing automation, and then B2B International on market research. What I'm interested in is, from your thoughts, Michael, so people from the outside looking in and saying, okay, makes perfect sense to me, 5 powerful brands there. But how will this work for global clients looking for this end-to-end solution?
Well, I think it sets up beautifully for global clients because, it's difficult for global clients right now to put this full set of capabilities together. It requires a tremendous amount of integration on their part. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And frankly, it's taking them away from other places where they could be adding value to the business. So, we think that the proposition sets up really well for global clients. B2B, when you look at B2B solutions, so let's just talk about customer acquisition, or let's talk about customer retention. The B2B business is less nuanced in some respects than B2C. So if you're thinking about, back to my old days in packaged goods, if you were selling a soap powder, you would have to craft the positioning and the messaging of that soap powder around each individual market because there were so many local nuances that were involved. And so creating scale advantage was difficult. In the B2B space, the IT manager of a mid-sized telecommunications company who's looking to buy some technology in order to help them, open up new markets and get new solutions to markets faster. There's more consistency in the various factors that they are dealing with than there is on the B2C space. So in other words, we're able to stand up solutions that can go global and be scaled cost effectively, I think, in B2B. B2B is, once it's done well, we can stand up solutions and scale them. So I think that global clients are going to be, able to take advantage. The end-to-end solution, the sort of customer experience that I was talking about, the pulling together of all the touch points in a virtuous world that puts the customer at the center, requires a tremendous amount of capability to be able to do, which is one of the reasons why we did this. We brought 5 different companies with 5 different sort of core DNA, so that we can manage the data, we can manage the analytics, we can manage the integration, we can manage the technology, and help clients pull those pieces together. We can tell the brand stories, we can segment the audiences and really deeply understand the audiences. And we can execute, we can activate across any channel of their choosing. So, it takes a village, and, having that under the kind of one point of contact, we believe is a compelling value proposition for big B2B businesses, because really it allows them to build a solution once, run it in many times, in many places, get it stronger, and start to align their own internal organizations so that they can create more seamlessly connected experiences for their customers.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, we're positioning Merkle B2B as the never before in B2B, and in order to build that, then we've got to have a different way of working. And people external to Merkle B2B won't know this, but there's this open strategic system of how we work when a client comes together to bring to our end-to-end abilities. We call it the lens, don't we? But it's these different teaming platforms where we're bringing different people with different specialisms together to enable the best people in the business to come together, and like you say, all the time with the client central to that, but us working around them to deliver some different proposition to them.
Yeah, I'm really excited to start sharing the lens with our clients because, we recognize that when you come from different sort of centers of gravity, you have a way of doing things. So, the creative brief for the advertising, and the technology brief for the tech, and the social brief for the social environment. And there is connective tissue that holds those things together, but there's different sets of language and different approaches to building those solutions. And it's one of the reasons why it's hard for clients to pull that together. What we've done is we sat back and said, okay, if we're going to deliver truly integrated solutions, we need a common lexicon. We need a common methodology. We need to be able to all contribute in an open environment to this solution. So we got the strategy planners from every discipline together, and they spent months building a framework, an integrated strategic framework that allows us to be able to look at the challenge, look at the business challenge, deconstruct the business challenge, look at the range of potential sort of solutions, and then zero in on the area that's going to make the most difference, and then get all of the relevant contributing parties to work off a common strategic lens to be able to contribute to that solution. So I think it's a real breakthrough, and I think that it's going to help us. It's certainly going to help us deliver integrated solutions to clients, and I believe it's going to really help clients get more integrated solutions. So there's going to be a real win-win there. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah, as you say, lots of work been going on behind the scenes, even though we're only a couple of weeks into the launch of talking globally about who Merkle B2B are and what we can offer. But with one eye on the future, 2020 behind us, looking forward, what opportunities do you think lie ahead for B2B companies, and how Merkle B2B can help them invest and take advantage of the opportunities out there?
Well, I mean, for us, it's about looking to expand existing relationships and offer more value. Obviously, no one gives anything away these days, so we're not expecting anything to be given. We've got to go and earn it. But we really feel like the benefit of sort of expanding the set of solutions and building more integrated solutions is a compelling value proposition to clients. I also think that we're able to bring through our alliance partnerships. So, clearly Merkle now is really starting to scale to be one of the largest partners to Adobe, to Salesforce, to Amazon Web Services, to Google, to Microsoft. So our ability, based on scale, to help implement integrated solutions through the marketing technology stack is going to be a future trend. And I think our relationships with those large global alliance partners are going to be a tremendous value proposition to clients as well. And then I think the innovative technologies that are going to come through around decisioning, around audience insights, and I think that those sorts of areas we're going to see a lot more test and learn going on, and sort of really trying to understand how that can help clients succeed with their prospects. So lots going on. I think that whether you consider yourself as a client at the kind of early stages of the customer experience transformation, or you consider yourself highly sophisticated at the sort of the high level of integrating customer experiences, we believe we've got solutions that can help any client on that journey. And for us, the future is going to be about really sort of delivering on those promises and driving against those opportunities and converting and seeing if we can build more integrated relationships with our big global B2B clients.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you mentioned earlier, actually, Michael, that it's just even around marketing, this B2B business is this $120 billion industry. It certainly is the quietest, billion-dollar industry that I've ever known of, and I think with digital spend only going to increase as we move out of this year, then it's the opportunities are boundless, I think, and I'm really excited to be on this ride with you and as a team within Merkle B2B. So we're definitely at the start of something big. So I do need to thank you for your time and the pearls of wisdom that I always get when I'm speaking with you.
Oh, it's great. It's great to have a chance to talk, Nick. I always enjoy it and appreciate the opportunity to share some thoughts here. And obviously, if anybody who listens has questions or would like to follow up on anything, I'm always available. And so I'd love to hear from you. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you, Michael. And you're right. For all our listeners, if you do want to get in touch, then Michael's out there on all the usual channels. And also, if this is interesting to you as Merkle B2B, this is the first podcast in a series where I'll be speaking to the various different heads of the different companies, getting their take on the wider B2B industry and also what that means for Merkle B2B. So this is the first podcast, but there will be more to follow. So please stay tuned. Thank you.